defund, or can they just reorganize within the department?
They reorganize, redesign, reform, however they see fit, right? This is a new stage. People are still out protesting. You don't need to protest. You won. You won. You accomplished your goal. Society says you're right. The police need systemic reform. That was accomplishment one. Now go to step two. What reform do you want? What do you want? I want systemic reform. Okay. How do you define systemic reform? Let's sit down at a table with the local government, with the police, with the other stakeholders. How do we redesign the police department? We start with this. It's a blank piece of paper. What do you want the police department to be in New York City? Let's design it. Here's a pen. Let's design it. What functions? What's the staff? What's the budget? What should they stop doing? We design it together. We have 9 months to do it. The local government convenes it. The local government convenes all the stakeholders. Take 9 months. It's easier said than done. And pass a law enacting that redesign by April 1. Well, what if we don't? Or if we can't agree? Then you don't qualify for state funding.
But does the agreement, must it include, it sounds like it doesn't. Doesn't have to include defunding. If they reorganize it in a way that's agreeable to the locals, that's okay?
Well, defunding literally means there's no police department, right?
Well, I mean, like New York City wants to move out $1 billion out of the state, out of the police budget.
Yeah, that they can, whatever the budget they want is fine. Whatever budget they want, whatever size police force they want. Let them determine that. Let them determine what demilitarize the police means. Let them determine a use of force policy. Let them determine a bias policy. Let them determine a disciplinary process. What should be done with citizen complaints? When do they become public? How about the disposition? Is that public? How long until you have a disposition of a complaint? Whatever they want. Community by community. Because New York City will want one type of police department. Suffolk will want a different type of police department. Buffalo will want a different type of police department. They're all reacting to different stimuli. What's true across the board is people want a different police department. That's what the protesters were saying. I agree with them. We've been talking about this for 40, 50 years. We're on to the new question. What does it look like? I heard you. You're right. We need systemic reform. Let's do it. Let's design the new police force.
Governor, when you talk about withholding state funding, are you referring to specifically funding for state funding for local law enforcement, which is just 1% of the NYPD's budget, or are you suggesting that education funding and other state aid for non-law
City governments and criminal justice budgets? We want the local governments to do this. New York City has to pass the plan, right? They're going to have to pass a law by April 1 that redesigns the police force. Maybe a new budget, maybe new level of staffing, maybe new disciplinary procedure, maybe new bias procedure, maybe new equipment. Whatever it is, they decide. They redesign their police force. They pass a law for that by April 1. If they don't, which is also coincident with the state budget, as you know, if they don't pass the law, then that city, that police agency will be ineligible for funding.
So you're saying then that all state aid to localities could potentially be withheld if a local government didn't enact some sort of police reforms?
Theoretically, yes. It will, in any case, be a significant amount of funding. There are some funds that are vital for health and human services that we would fund directly. But yeah, it'll be a significant amount of funding to that locality. And look, it's relatively simple. You have 9 months to do it, and you need to bring the community to the table and design your police force. If everybody's happy with everything, then just pass a law that is your current police force. But, as we heard from the protesters, people are not happy. They want change. All right, then figure out what change you want, community by community. That's your new police force. That's your new law, and you have 9 months to do it.
And just to follow up, Governor, sorry, if there's I believe at least 7, 8 bills that already have passed the state legislature. Are you saying that local governments, would you sign those bills? And if not, do you think
I'll sign. I have to review them, but you'll always have state laws governing police. A city is a creature of state government. The state created city governments. So there are state laws on policing that the city cannot circumvent, or a county cannot circumvent. There are federal laws on policing that the state and the city can't circumvent. So they stay in place. A city can add laws to the state and the federal. They can't remove laws from the state and the federal. But the state and the federal laws are not what people are questioning. People are saying we want additional laws, additional measures. People are saying I want the police to stop doing things. I want a new use of force policy. I want a new bias policy. I want a new diversity policy. I want them demilitarized. And that's all done at the local level.
Hey, can you describe what the state's role is going to be in overseeing this? Like, are you going to have an office or a commissioner, or how are you going to?
No office, no commissioner. Pass the law. We have Department of Criminal Justice Services, but we don't need a new bureaucracy. This is very simple to administer. They have to pass a law. If they don't pass a law, they either pass a law or don't pass a law. They either send us a law or they don't send us a law. If they send us a law, we're not going to second guess their law. All the state laws stay in effect. This is their local laws. If they pass a law, great, they're in compliance by April 1. If they don't pass a law, they don't send it to us, and then they're not in compliance. You want to add something?
I would just say that this isn't about increasing state government's voice in the process or adding more politicians into the process. It's about empowering the communities, right? That's what we're seeing through the protesters. People feel as though there's a lack of accountability within the local police departments and that they're not being heard. This forces the community to the table, and this also makes it so that the mayors are on the line, because the mayors have to facilitate this process with the police departments that report directly to them, and then the local legislative bodies, so the city councils or the county governments. And so you've got the community at the table directly, and then they can demand accountability through the mayors and through the local governments. So it's not about adding additional layers of state government into this process. It's about empowering the local communities and having a process where everyone feels their voice is being heard and there's accountability. So the only date you guys are concerned with is April 1, past or no, that's it?
April 1. Let's say it this way. You have these protests going on. I agree with the sentiment of the protesters. And by definition, what the protests say is the relationship is broken between the police and the community. More so in some places, less so in other places. Okay, then it doesn't work. If the relationship doesn't work, the policing doesn't work. It can't work despite the community. I'm going to police you even though you don't want me to. No, then I'm not going to pay you. It comes from my taxes. You work for me, right? Police are public servants. Okay, we have to then come up with a way to fix the relationship. And people want changes in the relationship. It's a little different from place to place. California wants one thing, New York wants one thing, and within New York City wants one thing, Suffolk wants something else. All right. In your local community, put everyone at the table, have the conversation. There's going to be tension in the conversation, I understand that. The politicians will not want to have the conversation because it's going to be a heated conversation. You have to have the conversation. That's what the state's saying. And you have to resolve the conversation. You can't just start a process and say, I'll have meetings, but the meetings go on forever and you never decide anything. You have 9 months, which is plenty of time to do this. And do it intelligently. Find out what is the best innovative policing mechanisms out there, who's doing the smartest things. That mayor, that county executive conducts those meetings, brings in the community. It's a collaborative. That's why the word collaborative. This is not a dictatorial session. Collaborative. You redesign the police. You get the law passed by your local body, so everybody buys in. County executive comes up with it, but the county legislature has to pass it. Mayor comes up with it, but the council has to pass it, so it's fully vetted. Whatever plan the locality comes up with is fine, is accepted. I'm not going to tell New York City what kind of police force they should have. I'm not going to tell Suffolk what kind of police force they should have. It's the local taxpayer who's paying for that. It's the New York City taxpayer who's paying for the New York City police. It's the Suffolk County taxpayer who's paying for the Suffolk County police. It's whatever police you want. They work for you. You're paying them. They come up with a design of a police force. They do it by April 1, fine. They haven't resolved it by April 1. You have to resolve it by April 1, because this is a very bad situation we're in. You need public safety in society. And when you have this tension between the police and the community, this is a bad place for everyone, and it has to be resolved. And it has to be resolved by April 1.
How will this apply to state troopers?
State troopers are going through their own process. There's no municipality involved. Obviously, they're statewide, but that we will do ourselves. Let's take one more, please.
On the reopening, there was a protest yesterday in Williamsburg. They want the sleepaway camps stay open, the day camps. Can you address that?
Yes, sleepaway camps, look, all of this is a balance, right? Everybody wants to do everything. I want to do everything. So it's a balance of the health risk versus the activity. How many people are in a gathering? What do we do in a restaurant? What do we do in a pool? What do we do at a beach? It's always a balance. Summer camps, we have studied with a great deal of diligence because it involves children, and there are certain new developments with children. We open day camps. That's one level of risk. Sleepaway camps are a much higher level of risk. And after much study and debate and research, our advice in New York State by our health commissioner is the risk is too great to open the summer camps. But Dr. Zucker's here with us, and I'll let him expand.
I know there's been an incredible amount of emotions about this, and as the governor said, we've had to make a lot of tough decisions about the pandemic, with this pandemic. And I have to tell you, this has been one of the tougher decisions, that I've had to make about or pass the message on, pass the advice on. But we've always made decisions based on facts and science on these issues. And I've looked at this from the role as the commissioner. I've looked at it as a role as a pediatrician. I've looked at this as from my role as a father or being a father, and also actually as being someone who has very fond memories of sleepaway camp and in the Catskills, and I understand where people are coming from this. But we have to go back and look at this from the facts. And the facts are that this is a congregate setting. There are many children who are together in a bunk. They're sleeping together in the same area, close by. They are eating in the same common area. They are using a shared bathroom. So social distancing in this situation is just not possible. So what will happen is that the virus will get into one of these camps and it will spread. And someone will say to you, well, how do you know? So it goes back to history, goes back to facts. What we have seen over the course of time is that we've had H1N1, which was a virus back years ago, and it got into a camp, many camps. There were 50 outbreaks of that. That resulted in 1,600 cases of H1N1. We had a mumps outbreak once, one person, 120 cases, and from those 120 cases, we could track 3,500 people who got mumps in multiple states in the area, because people from camps, sleepaway camps, often come from different areas. So we look at this from the basis of facts. We look at this from the basis of science, and that was why this has become a tough decision to grapple with, but that's what it is. And day camps are different because you have a confined number of individuals in one area. And one other thing about that is also that the health system within, or I should say, the health professionals within the sleepaway camp will be easily overburdened if you end up having to quarantine all of those children in a camp. So it's a tough decision, but this is the best public health practice that I can think about.
Thank you guys very much. Thanks. Have a great day.
What about youth sports doctors? Do you think that they could resume